words.
And you also said that there are membranes inside the Earth that had been dormant for, I think, millions of years that were now being activated by the beginning of these new waves of consciousness. So it might be really helpful for people, if they're not aware of that, for you to share that with us a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, it was kind of, like I said in the pre-chat, so my teams had been sort of, I guess, coaching me, you could say, about, the idea of membranes for the last sort of number of years. But it was always sort of just sort of sporadic, pockets of information. And when we did that meditation, I had no idea they were going to talk about that. I usually tune in beforehand and get the theme of what's going to be done, and it's very spontaneous, and it's, the ISI comes through, all the infinite source intelligence, my higher self and the teams together, and they bring through what they wish to offer. And they added this new idea in, and it was very cool because I realized, these are very similar to the membranes you've been telling me about for a while. And for those who are new to this, and perhaps new to me as well, so what they were showing was that inside the Earth there could be more, I don't know, but what they showed me immediately was that there were 12 nested, like what looked like bubbles. When you get like a bubble solution and you blow bubbles out, looks exactly like one of those, like a membrane, essentially. And they were nested in each other, 12 of them, going from the sort of slightly closer to the edge of the surface all the way down in towards the core. And these were coming back online, they were activating. And what they later on showed me was that other planets have similar systems, and they're all part of a very prominent or profound, I'm trying to find the right words to speak of it, energy system of connectivity between the planets that is multidimensional and is related to this I'm not going to call it membrane technology. Technology is the wrong word because it's not like we have. It's a very advanced form of conscious formation, and it's multidimensional. That's the best I can really articulate it right now. But essentially, inside these membranes, they were saying that you can design physics exactly, or the motion of energies exactly as you wish to. So they're like enclaves or environments, literally like a bubble of an inner energy environment, so to speak. And that the Earth had 12 of them, and I suspect there may be more, I don't know, so I'll let the teams tell me when they're ready or what they wish to share. But they did say that that Earth had been very dimmed down because of the move into density that humanity had taken. So the operational state, you could say, these membranes had to be sort of quietened down, because the kind of energies that emanate and radiate from within and inside these membranes can be quite off the charts, and that's just putting it mildly. And so to have this experience, it almost seems fitting in a sort of common sense kind of way that they had to be stepped down because there would be too much high energy, and people wouldn't be able to wouldn't be able to hold a low density state. They just flip right back up again. Now that's my interpretation of that. That's not information that's come from the teams. That's just my puzzle piecing together from what they've said. But it does seem to fit. And so what they were saying is that at the moment, the two planets that had the most prominent active membranes and had through, even through Earth's sort of dip into density, were Venus and Jupiter.
And there are benefic planets in astrology.
Yes, which is very interesting.
And the greater benefic in astrology.
Yes. And Venus in particular had very prominent and the membrane system within Venus was really rocking, so to speak. It was very bright and it was emanating very powerfully. And Jupiter seemed to be sort of, not to put them side by side, but, in terms of emanation, it was definitely next to Venus in that way. There's still a lot more to understand about that, so this is just sort of like the tidbits of, the overall picture, so to speak. But what they were saying is that there are even membranes, within the star, the solar system. The orbits themselves are interrelated to this membrane functionality as well, how these membranes work. Now, the whole solar system feels like it's being moved into a more multidimensional, synergized state, which is very beautiful. And it does seem to involve these membranes on a very fundamental level. And there was an interchange or an exchange of energies multidimensionally between membranes, a little bit like what comes to mind is tuning forks. If you had an A and an A and you ding the A and you move them close, suddenly this A will start to ring as well. There's an energy transfer because they can resonate. If they can resonate, energy can transfer between them in a very simple overview. Whereas if you take a B and then you ding the A and you move it, nothing happens. There's no energy transfer because there's no resonance between them. And so in a similar way, I believe my human sense, if you like, of these membranes is that there is a multi-dimensional synergistic communication between planetary systems that is coming back online, that is becoming alive again. And so the solar system as a whole seems to be moving back towards a large living energy system, rather than just what seems to be, or has an apparency of, individual planets just going on particular orbits doing their thing. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I mean, there's still so much more information to learn about this, and they give me tidbits every now and again when I'm ready for the next stage. But to me, this is really super exciting.
So, David, these are the sort of the bubbles you've been talking about when we had our chat the other night, the
Yes.
bubbles around Earth and our whole solar system and each of the planets within it?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. And the other one that they mentioned, because you mentioned about the 4th of December, about the waves coming in, and yeah, boy, was the energy off the charts. I'm pretty sensitive. And I didn't expect to feel much when they gave me the heads up, I think, when you asked, and it was actually by you asking the question that they brought that date through. I wouldn't have asked it for otherwise. It's just like, okay, when it's going, it's going. And you said, when were the waves going to come through? And they just came straight away, 4th of December. And so, I'm not one for predicting things because it's, the future is very much in flux usually. But I'd be interested to see what happens on the 4th now that they've said that, And when I woke up, the palpability, the visceralness of the energy that I felt was off the charts. I woke up and I said to my wife, wow, do you feel that? It's like the whole energy of the environment has just rocketed up. It was really palpable. And so I did the line stream that following Sunday, and I thought, just out of cheekiness, I thought, did anybody else feel anything on Tuesday? And like you said, everyone was saying, yeah, we all felt this. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool confirmation of everybody else sensing that too. And they were saying it was these waves that were impulsing from the sun because they had those massive craft that were modulating the sun. And they're all interrelated to these membranes coming back online as well. There's this huge multidimensional, what could you say, family initiative, cooperation, whatever you want to call it, of high dimensional expanses, beings that have high dimensional forms, field forms, not necessarily physical bodies, that were working on this. And it's part of this grand project to essentially, and in my interpretation again, to bring the solar system back into a greater alignment with this massive, greater family of light synergy, if you like. I'm trying to find the right words, but that seems the most appropriate. And so that's where we're headed. It's such a massive, what could you say? I mean, the celebration, the joy that comes with this and knowing where we are headed is for me is quite profound. It really is. And, that we're moving in ways that are so big and so expansive. And it's not just us on this planet. It's not just us in the solar system. We are being reintroduced to vast expanses of different beings, different intelligences that all come together and are saying, hey, humanity, welcome back to the family, So I feel that's essentially, in a very, very beautiful nutshell way, what is happening.
Amazing. And I was mentioning to David just before we started to record, there's some people I'm aware of locally who, didn't have a particularly spiritual worldview or philosophy, and they were either very angry and fighting against the system, or very depressed about the system, or whatever. And since the 4th of December, 3 people I know have gone through a real kind of epiphany where they're now just kind of living in bliss.
Yes.
And they just completely changed beings, and they've got no real explanation for it. It's so interesting because I think you described your experience on the 4th as one of huge bliss. And I know
It was. Yes, it was, definitely. And one of the things I wanted to add there as well was that there was another membrane they spoke of which was going to complete around now, either today or tomorrow was going to be complete. They told me about 2 weeks ago that it was around the 15th, 16th that it will be completed. And it was a membrane that was forming around low Earth orbit. And this was to do 2 main things. There are quite possibly others, but these are the ones that were described to me. Number 1 is that because of the modulation of the sun, and it's going to give off these powerful energetics, it was designed to both effectively shield, I guess is an appropriate word, because there'd be a lot of physical sort of things coming off the sun, CMEs or coronal mass ejections, and we're seeing a lot of those right now. And as they impact, it's going to modulate or make sure that what passes through the membrane is optimum for the best evolutionary process for everything inside the membrane. And I remember you asking the question before about, is there going to be this big solar flash that's going to rocket towards the Earth and poof, everything and what have you? And I always got the feeling from my teams that's not going to happen like that. I mean, it would be utterly counterproductive. It would, in just a simple human common sense way, it would be, well, what would be the point that we come all this way just to have that happen? That doesn't make any sense. And so they never gave me any more explanation than that. But now it makes sense because these beings have the ability to create membranes and design the energy motion within them on scales that we can't even fathom. It's not even an issue to them. So everything is really handled at a very, very high level by beautiful and immaculate intelligences that are looking to help and evolve this solar system and humanity back into higher alignment. And so there was never an issue of, even if there were going to be some big CMEs, it was never, my sense from them is it was never going to be an issue that there was going to be any events that were going to impact humanity in such a devastating way. And, it's this membrane explains a lot to me because, the sun can go through its processes, it can do all sorts of things, but the energies we receive through the barrier of the membrane are perfectly suited at every given stage to what we need to elevate us forward. Now, secondly to this, inside the membrane, they are altering the energetics. So what they're doing is they are changing the environment, the energetic environment. And to me, I've said it many times before, physics is just a synonym for energy behavior. It's the study of how energy moves or interrelates and bounces off each other, yada, yada, yada. But that to me is just energy behavior. So they can change the energy behavior in the environment of these membranes. And it's interesting because the term membrane is known to science. In string theory, membranes or their version of what they call membranes is there. I don't believe they've, it's not talked about like it is here. It's a very different, I think that modern physics understanding of dimensionality and membranes is not quite, let's just leave that one there. But these membranes, what they're doing is they're changing the environment so that now, within the environment of this low Earth orbit membrane, it's going to raise up and up and up quite fast. So what they're saying is, in the past, you've seen this sort of uptick with these little drops as people get a shoot of energy and then it drops down and they get to deal with the stuff that comes up. Then they raise up again and each time they get a little bit higher. But now they're saying with the membrane on, it's going to start going up like this. It's going to really start to ramp up. And I feel that's what we're seeing now, particularly with a lot of people's reactions and stuff that's coming out of them, because now the shift is really launching into a new gear, 100%. And so what they're saying is, because of this membrane, it is now possible for people to align themselves and within the core intelligence within to their fifth dimensional quality and be living at that level, and now even lower sixth dimensional as well, which wasn't seen as a possibility before. Now, one of the other cool things they did say is, because now this membrane is on, depending on how people make choices, the work they do, the things that they choose to let go of, etc., it may even be possible to change the environment to allow people to reach the seventh dimensional expression of existence also. Pardon me, and I'd never thought that was a possibility beforehand until they were talking about this, but they were saying that is now a possibility. It does depend on people's choices. You can stay in the density if you wish and, carry on in the same old dramas and stuff, but it is, given this inner environment, it is extremely exciting, because the possibilities of what people can now reach for in their alignment, their inner alignment, and how easier it will be to connect within, and I believe how easier it will become to let go of stuff as well, is really, really exciting and very, very profound.
Wow, thank you, David. So is the membrane and these much higher energies, are they acting as an amplifier for wherever you're at? Because we're seeing the world get kind of wilder and crazy by the hour out there at the moment. So is it an amplifier of wherever you're at? So if you're on a path of trying to hold calm and peace and love and joy and compassion in your heart, that certainly seems to have the potential to be amplified. But equally, if you're on a kind of fear, angst, polarity
Yes.
focus, is that being amplified as well at the moment?
The way I choose to describe it is that what it's making possible, and the levels of stillness and serenity that I've been able to feel since this has gone on, and with the activations the team's brought through with the stillness. And I share an experience I had last night, actually, which is interesting. It happened the night before doing this interview, is that I had this experience of the source energetic coming through with such a stillness as I have never felt before, and the ecstasy coming through the heart itself, the heart tissues and everything, was like every cell in your heart being tickled to such a high degree that it felt everything was just emanating. It was just so beautiful and blissful, but so incredibly peaceful. And I believe these are instances that are going to be available to people more and more as they choose to open and relax and allow from within. Because this process isn't to do with fighting or making things happen, or, in my view, it's very much a process of letting go and allowing the inner intelligence to present itself and to come forward in a way, and to allow it to immerse in you, to synergize with you. And you will quite naturally, like going into a nice warm ocean, or something like you just bathe and then you just relax into the water and just and let go. It's a similar kind of experience, when you allow that beautiful intelligence to come through and you just let it pervade you and just relax into it. Everything just takes place for you in that way, because humanity has been so used and taught from a very young age to struggle, to strive, to fight, to push and plan, and everything else that people have been taught to do. It's kind of an autonomous program in a way in many people. And I've had that myself, so I totally understand that one. I've come from that camp, And so what I would say, coming back to your question, is that what they were very clear on is, because the environment was going to get quite high, in a much faster sort of succession, what was going to happen is that it was going to bring out people's stuff much faster. And so rather than sort of, I would say, perhaps instead of the word amplify, I would say it will highlight much more specifically, is probably the word I choose to use. And so I think that's what we're seeing. I know in my personal experience, you're seeing that people are getting a little bit more edgy, more reactive, a little bit more fiery, and it really, to me, is the sign of, okay, these are the old energies coming out. And, to practice an art form, if you like, of saying, okay, can you just allow them? That word allowance is spoken across many different ways in this community. But the art of just allowing energies without engaging them is somewhat of a bit of a practiced, thing to do for us human beings, and it's almost just the more you can find that stillness, that still point, the peace within your core, that will become easier and easier and faster to do the more you do it, and it will become quite natural. And this is why these beings, when I have these experiences, they're so peaceful and graceful. They know everything that's going on this planet. They've seen the ugliest stuff you can imagine, and they've seen the most beautiful things that you can possibly imagine. They don't get upset. They don't get reactive. They don't get triggered. They're incredibly peaceful, incredibly centered, because they can respond and not react. There's a very different thing between responding heart-centeredly and intelligently from the heart center rather than reacting in all sorts of outbursts and kind of things, But the outbursts that's really just, to me, a key that things are coming out of you. So someone's presented themselves upon your request, you've emitted the energy, and someone's come to you. They've poked your buttons, and now it's activating and bringing out the stuff inside you that was a part of that request. Now you get the choice. Do you want to keep this? Do you want to keep going through these kind of experiences by holding it back down and letting it run its course again? Or do you now want to let it go and move on so you never have to have that experience again? And those are the choices that we have to make. So I see that happening a lot, and they said that is certainly going to happen more and more and more. And this is all, I feel my higher self saying that they are very much aware that, for some people who really are holding on quite tightly, it might feel quite intense, because the amount of which they're holding on to is actually the intensity. It's like a tug of war. You're pulling this way and they're pulling really hard that way. No one's moving, and you're putting all this energy into the push-pull, and nothing is actually moving. And it's very similar for us as human beings. We don't realize sometimes the depths and how exactly we're holding on to things. We just feel the surge of the experience of the yuck of it as it comes up, And so, that's just something to bear in mind going forward for people as a helpful message, I think.
I can easily drop into bliss in scenes such as you have behind you, David. That can just
yes.
moments. So
Yeah.
are we right at the beginning now, either of a new cosmic consciousness or the remembrance of an ancient cosmic consciousness?
What I would say is this is something that is very new. The energetics being introduced, the levels of access and the types of consciousness that were being offered is very new. This is a clearing away of a lot of old as well, because everybody on this planet, as far as I've known, I could be wrong on this, and my interpretation is that nobody is, people have had many different lifetimes and many different systems, many different experiences going back without beginning, because the concept of time that we're used to in linear time, sequential, segmented time as we experience it, is not the same as it operates elsewhere, It's a funny thing, and so there's a lot of experience that people are bringing forward on this earth as they're experiencing these energies, with the opportunity to clear loads from the old, to literally shift their paradigm into something completely new. So I very much see that is the case. And it's not just for us. By us going through this, they've said many times that there are many races with eyes on here, because, there's something very particular and special about where we are, the planet we're on. There's a whole mix of circumstances coming together, which makes what we're going through, very, very prominent. And by us puzzle piece solving this level of density and rising up so high to fifth and even higher possibly, means that the solutions to critically dense puzzle pieces can now be fed into everywhere. And so simultaneously other systems will just lift up without, how did that happen? Well, because all of the puzzle piece solutions are now into all of the grids, and now everybody can just access them. It's this beautiful sharing, and I believe that's the way the universe was designed. It was designed so that whatever anybody else experiences in their own uniqueness, and whatever they solve as, part of their journey of expansion and self-development, is actually available to everybody else as well, and as one does one, another one does, and this one does, it suddenly avalanches, and exponentially everyone starts rising up together. So that's as I see it. That's how I believe that it works, definitely.
Yeah, lovely. So, because everything at the end of the day is interconnected, isn't it? And from the way you're talking, David, it's like we'll find that the whole universe is one conscious organism.
Yes, exactly. It definitely is.
And we are all just, whether we're a person or a planet, we are just fractal expressions of that divine intelligence.
Yes, and in many ways, I suspect this does come back to the membranes. And here's the cool thing: when they were talking to me at the membranes, suddenly it occurred to me, and I'm sure they may have dropped it in, say, well, the phrase "the music of the spheres."
My favorite.
Yes, is so common in spiritual circles, but no one seems to pin it down to what it means. But it does seem to have a lot of wisdom, and there's something very profound in that phrase, music of the spheres. And I did wonder, and I thought, would this be a very good example of what many people discuss of the music of the spheres? And it was it's a big yes. Because I believe that they had shown me before that human beings have their own membranes as well. It's just, these fields within fields within fields, nested membranes. And as you're ready and as you evolve, the interior of particular membranes start to raise up and change the environmental energetics so that you're ready to experience different higher level of exchanges from through the barrier of each membrane, so to speak. And it's not so much, the barrier sounds like a bit of an odd word, and perhaps it's the wrong one to use. It's more just the membrane, itself. It's not a barrier in and of itself. And so, yes, there's the whole thing is just one beautiful living system. And it's, and the trouble with what we've gone through, the densification, we've become so unaware of the living energetics, these living energy systems, that we've become fooled into thinking there's separation. Things don't intercommunicate. There isn't energy synergy. All these guys, we're all just somehow separated and just scrapping for our pile of the pie over here or over there kind of thing. And it isn't like that at all. That's merely a false perception based upon being in such a dense state that you have temporarily lost a sensitivity to the greater energy workings and synergies that are actually happening, in high levels, So, that definitely would be the way that I would speak of it.
Great, thank you. And is it my strong sense, David, is that each of the planets actually represents a particular resonance, magnetic resonance, and a particular aspect of consciousness? I mean, the mythology and the symbolism is quite different from planet to planet, and that we will start much more easily to communicate with those aspects of consciousness, because, of course, everything isn't just out there, it's in here. The more we understand the out there, it's because we're understanding more of the in here, and our consciousness is expanding.
Yes.
So is it that we will be able to communicate not just to these spinning rocks, but to different aspects of our consciousness in a much more profound way?
Yes, indeed. I'm still learning a lot of this myself as well as the teams are communicating. But what I would say is so far that it seems that as the membrane systems in a particular human being start to evolve and start to essentially sort of charge or fill with new multidimensional energetics, suddenly it now becomes possible for new interconnectivities and flows to happen between you, the planets, different consciousnesses, and other things like that. So it's a good question as to how much of people's personal membranes not working or operating properly is actually part and parcel why many people say, oh, I don't have such communication, or I don't feel this, or I don't sense this, whereas other people do. So that might be an interesting thing to explore with my teams, but they're kind of smiling there. They're kind of saying that, essentially it's, there's such a beautiful, rich tapestry to this whole thing. And one of the ways to, what they're showing me is, if you imagine a field of oneness, everything's interconnected, there's perfect flow, there's no separation, there's no individuation, so to speak. And then a bubble forms. And then within that bubble, you can change the environment so that it looks slightly differently contrasted to outside. Now you have the appearance of something that is individuated within the unified field. Oh, now you can create more bubbles within more bubbles with different experiences and so forth. And then suddenly, quite differently, these innermost bubbles have a very different experience because the energy environment within has been set up differently. So while you're in there, your consciousness sees things perceptibly very differently. And so it begins to seem to me that perhaps the simplicity of the foundation of reality, and I'm maybe being a bit bold in saying this, is that it comes down to these membranes, or these different varying forms of these different membranes in one way or another. That's just something I thought of saying because that's kind of what they were sort of impulsing to me. So that will be interesting to kind of feel on that more and kind of feel what they're saying more deeply as time goes on. But it does seem that, because they've always said that it's much more simple than you can possibly imagine. Physics tends to, and I, having been a physicist, I know full well how complicated things can get. And the trouble is that the complexity misses the simplicity. And when you miss the simplicity, it's very easy to miss the truths of what's going on. And I'm starting to see things in a much more, very beautiful, elegant, simplistic way with the way membranes operate. And they did say that this goes in scale. Think about atoms. Atoms themselves have nested membranes in them. What actually forms, how does energy compress and form the way it does and coalesce into what we call matter? Well, membranes are involved with that. And so quite possibly this beautiful idea of the music of the spheres is in everything. And when we talk about fractalization, well, quite possibly these fractal step downs are actually these membranes. It could be. That's just a lovely little thought I had there. And so I'll be talking with my teams a little bit more about that to see if that's.
Wow, this is just so fascinating, and this is a very unfair question, Dave, because you're not an astrologer. But do you have the feeling that the symbolism, the mythology of the planets will change as we move into these more evolutionary times?
Yes, so the impression I got from my higher self and the teams that are communicating via my higher self was a big yes straight away. Yes, things are going to change because they're saying the energy systems currently prevailing are undergoing this transition and moving into different living energetic systems. So things are going to change. One of the beings here is like like this. They usually do that when they say we don't want to spoil the surprise. Is that what's being said here, my higher self? Yes, in a word. They're saying much of this just needs to unfold. We need to get a sense of it first, because one of the things they're very keen on, and they've told me this many times in my own path, is that don't try and get ahead of the curve mentally on things because you haven't had the experience of it yet. And I've because the mind can be a real kind of, wants to go out there and, cross all the T's and dot all the I's quite quickly. And I know that very well from my own experience as well. And they're saying the trouble with that, and the Arcturians, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this on your show before, that they said when I was trying to make this system, this coil system that they were teaching me, and I was getting a bit frustrated and a bit sort of bogged down, and they just said, just relax, take your hands off and just settle yourself into stillness. And they said, you're going to understand that living from your heart center intelligence is very different from living from your mind intelligence. And right now what you're trying to do is you're trying to analyze this from your mind intelligence. But your mind, as beautiful as an instrument it is, it's not designed to perceive the level of the energetics and what we need you to feel and perceive here in order to do this. So that's very, very different. And I think that's why they're really encouraging people. So it's not like they're withholding and saying, no, 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 here's the carrot. It's not like that. It's more they really would love people to move, because I think this is part of the movement of what we are in. We are moving to a heart-centered intelligence, living human being form and experience. That's my view and my belief. From what the teams have showed me and what the source intelligence has showed me and what I've experienced myself. And that entails living the experience itself, and once you've lived the experience, then you can have your mind apply and do sorts of things and, kind of put things over here and change things and, do other things with it if you want to. But it's, for me, humanity so far has lived in a way where the mind had taken the precedence of how things go, when, where, how, why. We're changing from now that to the heart intelligence, where we have this beautiful experience of the heart intelligence, which is not what the mind intelligence is designed to work with or have any ability to have perception of. But then when this synergy between the heart and mind occurs, when the mind then becomes an extension, instrument of the heart intelligence, then immaculate thought creation and the beauty of the mind will really come into a play in its own then, because while it's separated and working on its own, it can sometimes, a lot of the times it can take the wrong path and, do destructive things rather than positive things. So that is also another synergy and another healing that's taking place as well, I feel. But to come back to your question, I feel it's all taking place together. Nothing of this, in my view, is separate. It's all moving together. The solar system, the planet, in the core of the planets, in our Earth as well, and within us, everything is moving in synergy together. So that's as I see it. So it will be exciting to see how things do change, in the way you asked the question there, because I think they are smiling a lot now, which means that there are some pretty interesting and big things coming, but I don't think they want to spoil a surprise.
Yes, you talked maybe 2 or 3 months ago, David, about there being 6 or 7 evolutionary waves, such as we had on the 4th, continuing through 2036. Yeah. And do you still feel that's the case?
Yes, they're actually saying there's going to be more now. That's interesting. That's the first time I've heard that information. Okay, so my higher self, would you like to highlight anything further there on Pam's question? So they're saying because of the rich possibilities of what has happened inside the waves, how people have responded by allowing the energy to evolve and work with them. And with the completion of this membrane, they're saying they now see more instances of these waves coming through in the membrane and going faster. So they're saying you humans really are going like wild horses. That's crazy.
The fire horse starting on the 17th.
Yeah. It reminds me, it's a very old film. It's an old fantasy sci-fi called Krull, where they had fire mares, where they had horses that could create fire under their feet and fly in the air. I loved that as a kid when I was very young. I just had this image of that happening. But yeah, they're saying that that human beings, for the majority, are working very well with the energies coming through. And they're saying, yes, there are a lot of instances of people's stuff coming up, and that is expected. They're saying it has to be that way because stuff simply needs to shift. It has to come out of you. And they're saying they've used this analogy a lot, where if you have lots of mud in a cup of water, and then you start pouring crystal clear water in, eventually it's going to burrow down, it's going to root all that stuff out, but all the rubbish is going to come pouring out of the top as it does. So your nice clean exterior of your glass is going to get real dirty every time that happens. And that's an analogy of the way that it happens, and it can feel pretty darn awful, when stuff comes out. I've been through many, many examples myself of big archetypal outpourings that feel rotten to the core when it comes out of you. It does. And, and they kept saying to me many times, just allow, just allow, just allow. Do not engage. Do not entertain it. Do not engage it. Do not think, oh my God, the sky is falling. No, it's not. The sky is actually opening up for you. That is why this is happening. So, but you're going to see the rubbish leave as it goes out the door. Okay, so that's what you're going through right now. So, yeah, I hope that little bit of information is helpful to you people watching this, because I think a lot more people are going through these processes right now of deep outpouring, because this energy is so high and so it really reaches in. It's really getting to the core of things and really dredging this stuff up, and it's just important just to relax with it and be playful. You know, try not to get caught in the doldrums of things and get down with things. I know it's sometimes quite difficult, but if you can just get out and say, you know what, it's like my team said to me, don't sit down and wallow in it. Just get up, go in the forest, go by the beach, do something. Just let it do its thing, and just keep yourself from getting spiraled down in it. And it will leave very quickly. So that's another little thing that I do for myself that might be helpful for other people too.
And I think there's a much greater sense that's birthing of our co-creation abilities as well, that we haven't really, we've been victims in this life and many, many lives, but there's a much greater sense of stepping into spiritual sovereignty, co-creation. And I've said this several times in videos, that when I wake up in the morning, I choose the emotion that I'm going to dominate my day with. I choose peace, I choose joy, I choose love, and I will emanate that rather than waiting from external define my reality. I'm going to define my reality from the inside out. And I think more and more people are really stepping into that. And if we all did that and said, okay, we're all going to choose love, we're all going to choose joy, we're all going to choose peace, then what a different world we would create, I think, really quite quickly. As long as we stay in this reactive position, we're going to feed what we absolutely don't want and then blame it for giving us a hard time, as I so often say.
I agree. Yes, I totally agree. And this is one of the things I try to share with people a lot, and like with the live streams that I do as well. It's that by moving into heart intelligence, you are moving into responsibility rather than reactivity. You're giving up reactivity and you're moving into your true intelligence, which is the ability to create exactly what you would love to create, not being a feather in the wind, just blowing this way, that way, every which way but when, and feeling like you've just survived a day rather than you've just created a very beautiful day for yourself. And it's exactly as you said, this is what is happening. There's people's programs, paradigms, energies that were inside them, that were part and parcel of that reactivity is coming out. That's why we're seeing so much reactivity in people, because it's actually trying to leave. It can't be here in amongst rising energies the way they're going. Higher energies always take precedence over low ones. That's the way that everything is set up in reality. It's by design. It's the fundamentals of how, in my view, how this universe, and perhaps, if I'm so bold, others are designed as well, is to make sure that, everything, if you do experience densification, that the predominant energy, as long as you allow it in, the higher energy will take care of it for you. You don't have to be stuck in it, but people, get caught in things because they start playing the victim role. They start pretending that they are a victim to their circumstances. And I say to people, well, in truth, no, your energy emission has requested the experience to come to you for a certain lesson unfolding. And if you get caught up in it, it might seem like you are a victim to that XYZ happening, but in truth, you're not. And if you can rise above that and say, right, okay, my high self, what is it within me that I have requested? Person A, group B, or event C, whatever it is that's going on, that's bothering you. How on earth did I request that? And can you show me the energy? There it is. I see it now. Okay, I wish to move beyond that and give it to your higher self. Let your higher self break it down and replace it with your higher self love light, if that's what you wish to do, so that you can move that energy out and you can replace it with your higher intelligence, so that now you're emitting in its place the higher intelligence of your higher self. Very simple method for dealing with these kinds of things. And just be aware of how you are holding and refusing to let, because sometimes, these sort of aspects of us, that sometimes people love the drama of things and they want to keep holding it there and they want to keep engaging with somebody in debate or argument or something. Well, it's your choice to do that if you wish to, but the sooner you get tired of it and you realize you want to let it go, then you can go through that simple process of doing it. But definitely, core creativity and creating your life exactly as you wish it to be is what I believe, and I feel that you're of a similar view, is exactly what we're moving into, for sure.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, David. And I'd just like to pick up on what you were saying here, because it's something I've talked about before, that the higher frequency energy will always be dominant over the lower. And, the great psychotherapist, Dr. David Hawkins, talked about this, and thought leaders like Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipton talk about it, that it just takes a very small number of us, a very small percentage of us, to actually cascade down and positively affect the whole.
Well, in a way, it's interesting because I'd like to describe some of the actual physics of what happens there, or the energy behavior, what happens there. And it happens like this because all densification is not a primary form, it's a created form, and it has to be held in place by intent. Yeah. Whereas unity is something which is primary, it's natural, it was always there. You don't have to hold that in place. And so as, you make a choice to open up to, higher consciousness, light consciousness, whatever you wish to call it, you're actually allowing the dissolution of the holding in place of the densification, of the trauma, of the whatever it is that you're gripping in place. And so in a sense, it's actually a very simple function of, source love intelligence is primary. And we can have these experiences of densification, which are secondary creations. They're not primary. And they're only there so long as somebody is using their intention to keep them in place.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
Yes. And so
underlying them is now collapsing.
Well, if you look at it, this lends itself to what's been happening. Why is it, and I say to people, why is it that we're saying, what's been done to the human race, this race and those beings and, have done this and everything else. But, they've never shown themselves. What they do is they try to influence your decision making to get you to keep holding onto, in other words, to keep going with holding XYZ in place, to keep holding the environment of low energy density right there. You look at the way, the news has been, or you take your pick. The main focus is always to get you to stay in fear, stay in reaction, stay in victimhood. To keep holding the false facade of this reactive victimhood reality, non-reality, I should call it, in place. But the minute you step out of doing that and you say, oh, hang on a second, I see it, I see the gig, yeah, I see what's going on here, and like you say, no, I'm going to choose to create the world I would love to live in. I'm not going to be influenced by other narratives or external programs, any of that. I am going to choose. I want to live through peace today. I want to live through being more kind, being loving, or whatever it is that you want to experience. And then you choose from your creative power to do that and watch things change, when you step out of that victimhood. Because a lot of these forms that have been created have had so much energy, so much emphasis and focus put on them, they almost behave as if they're independent entities within themselves. And, people talk about thought form entities and those kind of things. Well, they are purely secondary, artificial creations of people's focus upon a given thing. And as soon as you stop giving it energy, what happens? Oh, it goes away, doesn't it? So it does dissolve. So this is the thing. That's the key here. It's humanity is going through a waking up process of realizing, oh, we were doing it to ourselves all along, weren't we? Yes. Yes, there may have been other people whispering in your ear and getting you to do this and that, but you had the free choice, And I know it's been difficult because of the density we've been in, but that's what we're coming out of now. We are learning to understand, each of us has always had the power to create exactly what we wish to do. But in the mix of things, we've had all these victimhood and reactive programs playing themselves out that make us feel as if like we're victims to things. So, and that's what this unfolding in another way is all about. It's the dissolution, the letting go, the recognizing of these old paradigms and programs, allowing, once you recognize them, is when light starts to move into them, because your conscious acknowledgement of them then opens them up to this light coming in and begin the dissolution process. In one way of saying it, so that it can effortlessly dissolve. And it's not complicated. It doesn't require a whole series of mantras and, whatever stuff you want to overlay it with. That's just complication again. Keep it very simple. What is it? The KISS principle. Keep it simple, silly. It's just keep it simple, keep it fun, and, the light intelligence within you knows how to dissolve things. It knows how to smooth things out, if you just let it. That's another aspect to this as well, I find, so.
I talk a lot in the videos, David, about where you're putting your focus and attention. And, I often use the phrase, starve out the scary, loving the good. Just starve it out, starve out your focus and attention on what you don't want. Starve out the scary, loving the good. Yeah. So I know linear time doesn't exist. So these are... my life as an astrologer is going to change out of all recognition. I know it's going to be L plates and start again time anytime now. We're moving into a very, very potent, I think, 3 months, February, March, April, with a lot of really, really, really big endings and beginnings.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And is there anything you would like to share, or your teams would like to share, either via you or in channeling or whatever you feel is most appropriate, to give us any insight or comment on that? So we move through. These next 3 months are going to be huge, and then another big peak in July, if linear hasn't dissolved completely by then.
Yeah. Okay, so what my higher self, so there's so the teams are sort of speaking via my higher self, so it's coming through my higher self here, and the source intelligence would like to give a brief idea afterwards, but okay, so my higher self, please go ahead. Okay, so this is the Arcturians are coming through here, and I believe also Syrians and Pleiadians as well. And there's some other races on the periphery here as well who are watching. They're very, very happy and very excited for what humanity is going through. And they're saying, you are indeed right. There are what many might consider some archetypal upheavals and very informationally challenging times ahead. They're saying, but this is very much they're saying in your human terms, the silver lining in the cloud, they're saying. Because within this, massive amounts of light is pushing this forward. And that's the key thing to understand. This is not, oh my God, some black clouds are doing X, Y, Z, They're saying all this is coming forward because of they're using this word, exemplary work of the star seeds, the light workers down here. They're being very clear about this. By opening up these spaces so that so much more light can come through, and the light that is flooding, they're saying, your realm right now. And they're saying, our message is this. Be of good heart, for no matter what you hear and see, it's related to old paradigms and it is moving away. And they're saying, we ask you as heart-centered beings, the very simple and powerful thing you can do is practice being in the space of your heart intelligence. Practice being in the stillness, practice being in the peace of it. They are saying, for when you are there, you can be, it's like they're showing me this eye of the storm. It's like being in the eye of the storm. You are in the centerpiece, you are blissful, nothing spinning around you is affecting you, and it really doesn't affect your energy at all. You can sit there smiling, and they're saying, like the Buddha. That's so funny. And they're saying, we thought you'd like that one. But they're saying it is very true. Laughter, joy, peace, and bliss. These are very much interchangeable energies, even though it might seem that they're not. Laughter being full, quite a. But they're saying it's all part of the same source energy. It's the same qualities. And so they're saying that the necessity of what's coming to come forward is these are necessary steps to undo old programming and release old programming from people, even though they may not even be aware they have it. And so this is part of the process. So they're saying the more relaxed, the more fun and just allowing and just. They're saying particularly when you hear pieces of information that might be shocking to you, it might challenge your narrative of what you think the world is or is not, or etc. They're saying be at peace with it. Know that the real foundations of how reality works is held in the most highest possible hands. Things haven't gone wrong. This is the clearing of your reality perception from old rubbish, they're saying, if you're using that word, that has been causing you to believe that your world is full of chaos, full of dross, full of awfulness and that kind of thing. That is going to disappear. It is disappearing rapidly. And they're just asking for people, allow it. Be in the center of the eye of that storm. Be in joy, be at peace. Allow what needs to come free from you to come free. Don't react to it. And you will sail through this very well, they're saying.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, David. My sense is by the end of this year, even, our world will be very different indeed from how it is now.
They're saying that's a big yes. Yes, it is. They're saying, they're expecting it will. There are certain groups of humanity that have no conception about, all these goings on and everything. And they're saying they will be quite rattled by this. But they're saying our request of you, dear light workers, is to be of comfort to them, help them, and just to allow them their space to go through what they need to go through. Try not to imprint your ideals or ideas onto them by telling them what you think, who did what, when, where, and how. They're saying we would discourage that. They're saying what we would encourage is the idea to help them understand you have source intelligence within you. Try to relax, try to be in peace, reach into that, and you will understand for yourself, from within yourself, what is going on. And it's got nothing to do with anybody else's perception, including mine. It doesn't matter who it is, because your own unique source intelligence is your go-to, always. And I always say that to people. Don't look at other people. Do not look at me. If I sort of catch people trying to put me, I'll say, no, stop it. You need to look within, because while you're looking at me, you're not looking within yourself. You're getting distracted. And that's not the point of this. The point is you have the same source intelligence within you. Look for it, allow it forward, allow it to emanate within you. And one of the things that the source intelligence, came through very strongly a couple of nights ago, as 2 nights in succession, was that just allow it to present itself even more inside you. And if you make that intention and that request, it will. It honors free will. It's not going to overstep your free will as a personality form, because that's part of the game that we're playing in. So you can request it, and the more you synergize, the more you let source intelligence come from your core, your heart center, and flood your body, literally like as if you're in this most beautiful ocean. You're just relaxing into it. You're just lying on the surface and letting the ocean support you. That's exactly what it will do. It wants to do that, but it will not overstep your free will. You have to make the choice to allow it through and invite that source intelligence from your core to flood you, to fill you with joy, and even transmute, change, clear things that you no longer wish to have in your life. It will do that for you. Sometimes it needs you to recognize them consciously, because the grip that you are using your free will to hold it in place needs to be recognized first before it can dissolve it away. Because if it just dissolves it away, but your grip is still in place, you're going to replace that. You're going to do it again. So that's very important. So people say, oh, I've invited source to dissolve it away. It's not dissolving away. So you're probably still holding it in place and you don't realize yet. I've done that many times myself, so I know what that's like. And so, okay, so my higher self and my teams and source intelligence, is there any other message that you'd like to share at this time? So the source intelligence is coming through, and it's interesting because okay, so what the source intelligence is saying is, rather than give a message, a channel message, what that intelligence is saying is, can you feel that very same energy that would be coming through in a channel within you? And if you can just close your eyes just for a second and just feel that source intelligence and relax with it, really relax with it. And the source intelligence is saying, just allow yourself to surrender and immerse within, and allow the source intelligence to present itself to you and fill and flood you. And just feel that in a very gentle rhythmic breathing that can be as slow or as fast or as deep or as shallow as you wish it to be, that gives you the most comfort, the most joy, and the most relaxation. That is rhythmic breathing. And so source intelligence is saying, dear ones, this is how simple it is. This is within you. It has always been within you. It will never leave. Because this is where you come from. No matter your experience, no matter what it is that is unfolding, source intelligence is your core, it is your center, and it is always there and available for you. This is the energy that is there in the center of any storm you experience. And it is saying, now as you sit in the eye of whatever storm you happen to sit, allowing this energy to come forward, feel now, if you wish, the energy of source intelligence now filling and pervading the very storm spinning around you itself. And give that storm, and any way in which you are creating or holding that storm in place, to the core source intelligence within you, and allow it to dissolve. This is a very simple exercise. In the coming days and weeks and your months, as major energies are going to shift, major paradigms are going to be shown to you. And although many may be uncomfortable, in whatever way that is to you, uniquely, sit in the peaceful core energy within you. And allow, if you wish, all agitation of the storm swirling around you to be filled with the source emanation that comes from your center, and watch how gentle and peaceful the storm settles down. And remember, source intelligence is the primary intelligence, the unified field, whichever you wish to call it, behind all things. And as an individuated creator with free will on this planet, you can make the choice to invite source energy in or stay as you are. But you are invited to see the difference of what it feels like to be in a storm of your experience, and to allow source intelligence to soothe and dissolve and disappear the energy of that storm. And so it is.
Thank you, David.
Okay.
That was wonderful. beautiful, beautiful channeling. You've given us some really magnificent sharing today. So
Yeah, you're welcome. I didn't expect, because I tuned in before and asked if they wanted to bring a message through, and they said just simply that message. But as Source Intelligence came through, it just sort of slipped into that state, and I believe that's that. And for myself as a human, that's actually what I was going to speak of as well. Just as a final recap, because I know that we're at the end of the talk now, and it simply is this, that we can create as much discord and chaos through our free will as we can peace and synergy. Depends on how we, whether we respond or whether we react. And one of the things that the Source Intelligence and my higher self have always been saying is exactly that. If you feel yourself in turmoil, come back into your peace. Just breathe, just relax. Disengage from the drama, disengage from the active energy of whatever it is you're doing. And then sometimes that can be difficult. Sometimes you do need to go for a walk in a forest just to get your mind off of it and release its grip. But just go into the peace and feel, because when you imagine it, Source Intelligence has created this solar system, this galaxy, this universe, just vast, unending realms. It can handle anything that you're going through. But you do, yes, exactly. And you are that energy. It is the master physicist, the master artist, the master chemist, the master poet, the master everything, the master creator. And you are of that energy. You are not separated. You have access to all of that. But you've got to allow it to come in, because through the experience of densification, using free will to make, perhaps you might say, wrong choices, whatever you want to call them, we've sort of made ourselves think that it's not there and we're separate and we're just trying to scrap up the pit, trying to get out, and it's not like that at all. It's always there. But we've been so preoccupied with distraction about, trying to get everything in our outer world organized just as the way we want it. Well, it will never work that way. It falls into place beautifully when you emanate that Source Intelligence within. You don't need to grab, plan, push, force, whatever you want to call it. It all happens very autonomously, because the Source Intelligence organizes everything for you, because it knows exactly what brings you the most joy, and it will organize things if you allow it to come through and fill you in that way to do just that. And so I think that's a lovely place to to leave that with people.
really specifically said, David, because some wise person said the way out is in. The way out is
very much. That's a very true statement.
And
definitely.
Once you're sitting in that place of peace or joy, you magnetize in effortlessly what you want in your reality. Whereas if we've all lived through the 3D, you set a goal, you plan, you go to see a bank manager, you get a bank loan, it's very logical and linear. You don't have to make that effort as we're going forward into higher dimensions. You just set your frequency internally, broadcast that out, and things arrive, synchronicities, meetings, coincidences.
And they do, and it's the Source Intelligence that organizes that for you, and it does it in ways, in different layers and multidimensional ways that we're generally just not aware of. But it does that. And, people, when they have those wonderful experiences, when it happens for us, wow, look what just happened. Yeah, it's just all been put into place for you, hasn't it? It's such a beautiful thing. And that's the beautiful ahas that, I hope many people start to get, and they start to realize, it really is always inside you. That's not just a nice pretty metaphor or a nice feel-good, one-liner to pick you up. That's not what it's about. It is very real, it's very true, and for me, as somebody who's come from a very head-centric space, being a theoretician, to where I am now, I've had profound experience of colossal clashes inside myself of going from there to here. And, I'm still evolving. There's still more just unending beautiful experiences to have. It doesn't stop, So yeah, I hope that brings people, good cheer and knowing that, because I think one of the things I see people doing a lot with these energies coming out is they're sometimes stepping back into old reactive ways. And that will pass as people allow and relax and give up the fight, so to speak, fighting within themselves. But yeah, it's with the advice that has been given today from the source intelligence and the teams is just simply relax with everything. Allow the storm to quell. Allow source intelligence to soothe it, dissipate it, because it only has the energy to keep spinning as long as you give it energy to keep spinning. That's the big thing. And that, again, that's not a metaphor. That is just literally energy in motion. You stop giving it energy, it's no energy to move anymore. It'll stop,
So. Very, yeah. Beautiful, David. You've just showered us with gifts yet again. So I'm just so grateful, so grateful. I can feel my consciousness expanding every time I speak with you. So I think everybody listening to this, I think and hope everybody will have absolutely loved it and felt expanded and elevated by it. It's so exciting to hear about the membranes and the bubbles and how that's being pumped up with high frequency energy. And we really are on the ride of our lives, I think. So
Yes. And just one last thing on the membrane is that, yes, by emanating more source energy, we are literally filling the interior of that membrane with that energy as well. So collectively, as we do that,